we can move to that next slide. I just want to welcome everyone to the Midwest Regional Webinar. We're addressing the workforce shortage and strengthening our economy. This is about investments in childcare, a real critical link to making sure that our economy is running. So we've pulled together a large panel to talk about this critical issue. Again, just want to remind you that the call is being recorded and the lines are muted. Please make sure that if you're interested in having closed captioning, that you just click that closed caption button for yourself. Use the Q&A feature for any of your questions for the panelists, and we'll try to answer some questions at the end of the panel. Use the chat feature to introduce yourselves and to make connections as well. If you have any technical issues during the call, you can email Violetta, who is an amazing technician behind the scenes for us, and she will be able to help you. You can also message her in the webinar chat. So without further ado, next slide. I would love to introduce Angela Green, the Regional Administrator at the Administration for Children and Families for Region 5. Thanks for welcoming us, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laura. And welcome, everyone. Good morning. And it's so great to see so many people coming from across the country. I see Texas is here and Indiana. I hail from South Bend, Indiana. So it's so great to see my fellow Hoosiers on the call today. But welcome to our Midwest Regional Webinar, Investing in the Childcare Workforce, the critical link to strengthening our economy. I am, once again, Angela Green. I'm the Regional Administrator for the Administration for Children and Families, or ACF, in Region 5, and I'm housed in Chicago, Illinois. And it is an honor to be here with you all today. The individuals who contribute so significantly to the well-being of our nation's children and families. In this forum today, our focus will be on childcare and early education, which are both a vital part of our economy. We are here to explore innovations and partnerships that strengthen the sector, enhancing its ability to serve our families and fuel our economy. We have all witnessed the role of childcare programs and how it played a critical role during the pandemic. They were critical during those times of uncertainty. They remained open to serve our essential workers and were truly able to ensure the resilience of our communities. Yet many parents grapple with finding and affording high quality childcare. And this is a challenge that we must continue to address. Now, we face the critical task of supporting our early childhood workforce and also confronting a workforce shortage. We recognize that this crisis predates recent challenges and without bold action will persist long after. This is why we are encouraged by President Biden's recent issuance of an executive order on increasing access to high quality care and supporting caregivers. This directive highlights several key initiatives vital to improving childcare access and quality. It emphasizes business partnerships, lowering childcare costs for families, boosting childcare supply, and enhancing wages and working conditions for workers. In the spirit of this executive order, we are proud of our interagency partnership with the Department of Labor's Women's Bureau and our ACF offices of regional operations, of Head Start, and childcare to bring this webinar to you today. Here in the Midwest, we have been at the forefront of many such initiatives and other early childhood investments. Our states understand the importance of early childhood education, or ECE, and childcare in supporting the success of our families. They have taken critical actions to leverage targeted childcare dollars, TANF dollars, states' general revenue, and the American Rescue Plan funds to bolster childcare in our Midwestern states. Today, you will hear from some of those states and tribes and providers about innovative practices we've implemented and in areas like career pathways, recruitment, and compensation. We will highlight great programs and projects like Wisconsin's Department of Children and Families program that they created called Partner Up, which aims to build childcare supply through business partnerships and a collaborative community approach. We'll also hear Next Door in Milwaukee, which offers educational opportunities for those in new to ECE, including pre-apprenticeship path program, which provides on-the-job training for aspiring assistant teachers. We'll hear from the Catherine McAuley Center in Iowa. Through ACF grant funding from the Office of Refugee Resettlement, they are training refugees to run their own in-home childcare businesses. And White Earth Nation in Minnesota has an innovative apprenticeship project, which we'll hear more about during today's discussion. So my hope is that today's session will inspire ideas on how you can support the early childhood workforce and parents eager to join that workforce. Now, I am privileged to introduce Kimberly Burgess Sims, the Acting Director of Policy and Strategy for the Office of Early Childhood Development at ACF. Kim is leading ECD cross-office and interagency efforts to support the early care and education workforce and will share with us today about ACF's efforts in this area. Please join me in welcoming Kimberly. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Angela. I'm so glad to be here with everyone today, especially to hear about the innovative work that's happening in Regions 5 and 7 to support the sector and the children and families that they serve. And I was just asked to briefly share some of our efforts at ACF and the funding that's available to support the workforce who play such a critical role in our economy, as Angela mentioned. So I'll spend just a couple minutes on that. And if you can go to the next slide, that shows our early childhood development mission and vision. So I work in the DC office for the Administration for Children and Families. And this slide shows the mission, vision, and priorities that we're pursuing across all of the offices that are working on early childhood development, Head Start, Child Care, our Office of Early Childhood Development. So I just want to point out on this slide that I think it's really important that this vision includes both what we want to see for children and families, those safe and supportive environments, and also what we want to see for the early childhood workforce, who are such critical partners to parents and caregivers in this work. If you go to the next slide, as many of you know and are likely involved in, the American Rescue Plan has made, and other relief funds has made a really meaningful impact on our sector, and it's hard to talk about this sector without talking about that work. I think one of the key points I want you to take away is that even though the American Rescue Plan Act did pass over 2 years ago now, there are resources still available through these funds to support and stabilize the early care and education workforce. You can go to the next slide to see some of that impact. The stabilization grants now have reached over 220,000 child care providers, impacting as many as 9.6 million children. We know that these grants have really been a lifeline for providers. It's really prevented many of them from closing their doors. And some states are continuing to provide those stabilization grant funds, while others have distributed all those funds. Importantly, most states have CCDF supplemental funds from the American Rescue Plan that are still available to be used to support the workforce. Head Start programs and tribal grant recipients also receive those supplemental funds, and we've been really focused on making sure that states and communities have that support to use American Rescue Plan funds and other relief funds to support recruitment and retention efforts, funding benefits for staff, scholarships, and other investments that build the pipeline. So this is a really critical effort, and there's been a lot of energy. If you can go to the next slide. While this has been a challenging time, as Angela mentioned, with really extreme shortages, it's also been a time of a lot of progress and innovation. So I'm really excited to hear more about that from the panelists. But here are it's kind of a national picture of some of the ways that the COVID relief funds have supported the workforce. As you can see here, All 50 states and DC have been using these funds for recruitment and retention bonuses or other compensation efforts. And we estimate that over 650,000 early educators have received increases in compensation due to these investments. We also know that many states are using these funds to improve payment rates for subsidies and improve payment practices, things like paying for enrollment rather than attendance, which can really have a stabilizing effect on providers and allow for increased compensation for the workforce. I'll talk today about some examples of other innovative state and local program efforts and strategies that you can use. And it's just really important to remember that these resources are still out there and it's not too late to take up some of the ideas that you hear about today. Go to the next slide. I wanted to mention that ACF has released guidance. We actually last fall released guidance across 3 of our programs at the same time, encouraging our partners in states and communities to use relief funds and ongoing funding in CCDF, Head Start, and preschool development grants, Birth to 5, to continue to support the workforce. And these documents really clarify and encourage ways that the funds can be used to improve compensation and develop professional career advancement opportunities. We also strongly prioritized in the preschool development grant Birth to 5 funding announcement that we put out this last fall that states and territories use those funds on workforce compensation specifically. And we're really excited to see some of the efforts that are coming out of those grants that have now been awarded. We also have issued several Dear Colleague letters that I'll put these links in the chat later that I encourage you to look at, where we highlight promising strategies that states and local communities are taking, and we encouraged use of new funds. The most recent one in March that we released highlights the fiscal year 23 funds that can support the workforce. And I'll put these in the chat soon. But if you go to the next slide, I'm just going to talk about a few of these funds that were included in the most recent appropriations bill. These funds passed in December, and we've been working to get them out to our grantees since then. Go to the next slide. We'll just briefly cover a few of these funding streams. So the Child Care and Development Block Grant received a $1.85 billion increase in fiscal year 23. And importantly, these are not one-time relief funds. These are what we're considering ongoing funds that pass through the regular appropriations process. So some of the workforce strategies that these funds can support are included on this slide. But the good news is that these are flexible funds that allow states to be creative in how they address workforce challenges. And we'll put the guidance on workforce support in the chat. Head Start also received an increase of $960 million in total fiscal year 23 funding, which allowed for a cost of living adjustment. And also there were quality improvement funding that can go to current grantees to be spent on compensation for staff and other efforts. We're really excited also about the opportunity to expand the Tribal Colleges and University Head Start Partnership Program. You guys are going to hear later in the event today about some important work that's happening through the White Earth Nation. And this Head Start Tribal College University Partnership Program is an effort to fund tribal colleges and universities to partner with Head Start programs to grow the number of qualified education staff who are serving in American Indian, Alaska Native Head Start and early Head Start programs. So really exciting that a funding opportunity will be coming out to expand that effort and build the pipeline. You go to the next slide. So I talked a little bit about the preschool development grants and how we are sort of prioritizing workforce in that program, among other quality improvement efforts for the ECE system. In January, we announced that we awarded a new round of those grants to 42 states, totaling nearly $300 million. In the past, these funds have been used to do a lot of workforce efforts, including creating sort of these more inclusive pathways to higher credentials and degrees, maintaining or increasing the diversity of the workforce, supporting educators' mental health. So we're really excited to see some of the activities that states have proposed to use these funds to support, including this list here on the slide, things like increasing wages and benefits, access to childcare and mental health support for the workforce, creating new registered apprenticeship programs or other career pathways, investing in the multilingual workforce. So really excited about some of these efforts. There's new $25 million increase in fiscal year 23. So there will be some opportunities to sustain or expand on some of these strategies in the coming year. We were really excited to see a couple examples. West Virginia plans to invest a significant portion of their preschool development grant, Birth to Five planning grant, to sustain the workforce retention bonuses that they were able to originally fund with the American Rescue Plan. So kind of sustaining those retention bonuses from over time to reach, I think they're planning to reach over 4,500 educators. And Montana is going to offer mini grants to providers to implement innovative recruitment and retention strategies in underserved communities. And there's a whole lot more that's happening, and I'm sure some of you are involved in those efforts. If you go to the next slide, one of the other things that ACF is doing to address this workforce challenge is we announced the launch of a new National Early Care and Education Workforce Center in February. The center is a $30 million investment over 5 years to support both research and technical assistance for states, communities, territories, tribal nations to improve recruitment and retention of a diverse and qualified workforce across ECE programs. We're really excited about this opportunity to really bring together funds from across programs to spur research informed solutions across the range of the mixed delivery system, because this early care and education workforce challenge is affecting folks in family child care, in centers, in Head Start, in schools. It's across the board. The center will be led by, is led by Child Trends and their partners at the BUILD Initiative, the Center for the Study of Child Care Employment at UC Berkeley, the 0 to 3, the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and the University of Delaware. So this is a unified approach to addressing this shortage that includes both research and TA and builds on all of our existing efforts to support workforce across settings. Some of the activities in the first year I've highlighted on this slide. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for you all and your partners to engage with and be supported by the center. New tools and resources, including a new resource hub, communities of practice for states and communities, and local programs, a national recruitment campaign, and ongoing research and data analysis where that research informs the TA and the TA informs the research. So next week, actually, there's going to be a national webinar that the center is hosting that'll allow you all an opportunity to learn more, and I'll be sure to share the link to that event as well. Finally, before I move on to the next speaker, Angela mentioned this earlier, but we're really excited to see, can you go to the next slide on the executive order? Okay. As Angela mentioned earlier, we're really excited to be here with our partners at Department of Labor and the Women's Bureau, because these are issues that we are not tackling on our own at ACF. We're working in partnership with other agencies. And as many of you have seen, President Biden did sign a sweeping executive order that's focused on care across the life cycle. So young children, where our office has been focused, but also people with disabilities and seniors. And it's a whole of government approach with more than 50 executive actions. We know that we need more funding to be able to truly address the compensation and career pathways challenges that we face in this field. But President Biden has really made a clear sign through this executive order that we can't wait. We need to do more now, and we are working across agencies. I think it's really significant that nearly all agencies are called upon to take responsibility for the early care and education workforce through this executive order. And we will have a lot more to share with you in the coming months on this. We have already at ACF made progress towards many of the actions that are highlighted in the executive order. Some of those highlights for HHS are listed on this slide. So excited to share more with you guys in the coming months. And finally, if you go to the next slide, I have just noted some of our workforce strategy resource pages that are available. I mentioned Dear Colleague letters, information memoranda earlier. This is where you can find a lot of that information. And then on the next slide, if you haven't already been involved in our monthly Workforce Wednesday e-blasts and webinars, This is an opportunity to just share relevant resources and information and innovation like you're getting today. Our next Workforce Wednesday is going to be on May 31st and focus on promoting staff mental health and well-being. I'll put the link for that in the chat. Our assistant secretary will be on that event. We're really excited about it. And I think that's all I have. I'm going to pass off to our partners at the Women's Bureau next, but we'll be here listening in and sharing links in the chat. I think I'm passing to Debbie. Is that right?
Thank you, Kim. Good morning. My name is Debbie Pascal. I serve as a senior program analyst for the U.S. Department of Labor Women's Bureau in the Midwest region. On behalf of Women's Bureau Director Wendy Chun-Hoon and Midwest Regional Administrator Gina Rodriguez, thank you for joining us today, and thank you to our ACF partners. Next slide. The Women's Bureau is one of the oldest agencies within the U.S. Department of Labor. We were established on June 5th, 1920, so we've been working to improve working conditions for women for over 100 years. We are the only agency solely dedicated to the betterment of women in the American workforce. I like to think of us as the voice for working women within the federal government. Women in the workforce are vital to the nation's economic security. The Women's Bureau champions policies and standards to safeguard the interests of working women, advocates for the equality and economic security of women and their families, and promotes equality work environments. We accomplish our mission through a combination of research and policy analysis, grant making, and education and outreach, often collaborating with other departments and organizations, such as in today's event. Next slide. Our focus areas are improving pay and working conditions in key female-dominated sectors, such as childcare workers, getting more women in pathways to higher wage jobs, expanding access to paid leave and affordable child and elder care, ensuring workers know and can exercise their rights in the workplace, and eliminating pay inequity and gender-based discrimination, violence, and harassment in the workplace. On the next slide, you'll see our key one in line with our key priority of reducing caregiver penalties in the workplace through affordable childcare. The Women's Bureau has developed a national database on childcare pricing. The database is the most comprehensive public federal source of childcare prices at the county level. The numbers highlight how working families struggle to afford center-based childcare and how the high cost of childcare impacts women's labor force participation rates. On the next slide, you'll see the findings from the data, which are not surprising. Childcare is a significant expense for families with children in paid care. It is unaffordable for many families across all regions of the country. The median yearly prices for one child range from $4,810 to $15,417, depending on the provider type, child's age, and geographic location. When we adjust it for inflation in 2022 dollars, this equals $5,357 to $17,171. These childcare prices represent between 8 to 19.3% of family income per child. A 10% increase in the median childcare prices was associated with a 1% point decrease in maternal employment rates. It's clear from the findings that access to quality and affordable childcare is critical for workers to remain in and enter the labor force. On our next slide, I'd like to share information on a new report we have. The latest employment numbers show remarkable recovery for women from the worst employment-related impacts of the pandemic. And mothers have also fully recovered from the significant employment losses experienced in 2020. But mothers and women overall are still less likely to participate in the labor force than fathers and men generally. A big part of this is due to who provides care in families. Women are more likely than men to provide family care, even when they're employed and when they work full-time. On average, women's labor participation and work hours decrease after having children. Often this is because women reduce the amount of time they spend working, or they leave their jobs entirely to accommodate caregiving. The result is lower earnings and less retirement savings for women, but families may feel they have no choice, or the trade-off may seem sensible, at least in the short term. Women's caregiving often supports the employment and earnings of men, and prices for care may be higher than low-wage workers' take-home pay. But the cost of caregiving persists long after the need to provide care ends. and it can undermine women's economic security in the short, medium, and long term. To raise up the cost of caregiving, last week, the Women's Bureau released a new report, the lifetime employment-related costs to women providing family care. On average, caregiving reduces a mother's lifetime earnings by 15%, while also reducing retirement income, nearly $300,000 in lost wages and retirement savings. Those who can least afford to absorb these costs also lose the most. Mothers with low levels of formal education, Hispanic mothers, and mothers with more than 2 children. Long-standing significant gender and racial wage gaps, even when controlling for measurable differences between workers, mean that women are already earning less than their male peers. And any out-of-pocket expenses, such as paying for childcare, needed to be added on top of the costs estimated in this model. So while the results from the report are striking, the total costs for caregiving are even higher. Next slide. Finally, I'd like to invite you to visit the Women's Bureau website at www.dol/WB to access the national database on childcare pricing, the lifetime employment-related cost report, and other resources and data now available, and new reports coming soon. Thank you. And now we'll hear from Adrienne Elrod about CHIPS.
Thank you so much. Great to be with all of you today. I'm Adrienne Elrod. I lead External and Government Affairs for the CHIPS Program Office here at the Department of Commerce. And today I'm here to talk about the child care provisions related to the CHIPS program. As most of you probably know, the Bipartisan CHIPS and Science Act was signed into law last August. This law provides the Department of Commerce with over $50 billion for a suite of programs to strengthen and revitalize the U.S. position in the semiconductor research, development, and manufacturing, while also investing in America's workers, which of course is what we're here to talk about today. Currently, the United States produces very few of the world's most advanced chips. In fact, we actually produce 0% of the world's leading edge chips. We want to, through the CHIPS and Science Act, aspire to make the United States a global leader in leading edge chip production. There are 3 major policy reasons for the CHIPS for America. Number 1 is economic security. Number 2 is national security. And number 3 is future innovation. Next slide, please. CHIPS for America, as I just mentioned, this is over $52 billion that Congress authorized in a bipartisan manner for us to incentivize the chips industry to relocate and reshore to the United States. $39 billion of that is for incentives, and that is to attract large-scale investments and advanced technologies such as leading-edge logic and memory chips, and of course, incentivize the manufacturing capacity for mature nodes and other types of semiconductors. Also, $11 billion is reserved for R&D. This is to conduct research and prototyping of advanced semiconductor technology, strengthen semiconductor advanced testing, assembly, and advanced packaging, and enable advances in measurements of science standards, material characterization, and manufacturing. We're doing this in part because we want to make sure that R&D is just not only beholden to the universities and the academia community and to companies, that we actually have a central hub here in the United States that is actually doing that. Next slide. Actually, I think we are on the next slide. Sorry. Yeah, perfect. So on, as I mentioned, the CHIPS and Science Act passed last summer. We immediately opened a CHIPS program office. We now have over 70 employees. We'll probably have over 120, 125 within the next 6 weeks. We're just continuing to grow. We announced our first notice of funding opportunity on February 28th, which was very quick considering how fast we got organized. And this was for commercial leading edge and current mature node fabrication and back-end facilities. We'll be issuing our second notice of funding opportunity later this spring/early summer. This will focus on material suppliers and equipment manufacturers. And then the third notice of funding opportunity will be to support R&D. And we are currently accepting applications for this funding opportunity, and this is what we'll be focusing on today. Next slide. So in order to achieve the ambition of our vision, we are prioritizing each of these areas listed here. For today's discussion, I really want to focus on number one, building a skilled and diverse workforce. This, of course, involves recruiting, training, and retaining a large skilled and diverse workforce that will be critical to strengthening the U.S. semiconductor ecosystem. Companies seeking CHIPS funding will be required to submit workforce development plans. This is something that the Secretary has talked a lot about. This is something that we've made very clear to applicants, that a workforce development plan is not preferred. It is not optional, it is required. So this is also in line with the Biden administration's good job principles. Additionally, and what we'll be spending the most of our time discussing today, applicants requesting over $150 million in funding must also submit plans to provide both their facility and construction workers with access to affordable, accessible, reliable, and high quality childcare. Again, that is a non-negotiable item. That is something that if you want over $150 million of CHIPS funding, you have to submit some sort of childcare plan. Next slide. So the childcare provisions in the NOFO, again, tight labor market. I don't have to tell all of you on this webinar today that we are living under a very tight labor market. And if we are going to actually do our due diligence with taxpayer dollars and make sure that we can fill these jobs in the large scale fabs that are being erected here in the United States right now, we have to fill the jobs, and we have to break down all the barriers that we can to enable more people to get into the workplace. This is something that helps us achieve our national and economic security objectives, which are the two most important objectives when it comes to implementing the CHIPS and Science Act. But it's also very important to make sure that we are, again, breaking down those barriers. And as you guys know, one of the biggest barriers to both women and men entering or re-entering the workforce is a lack of access to childcare. Half of all workers and nearly 60% of parents cite lack of childcare as their reason for leaving the workforce. This is something that really played into our decision-making when it came to making sure that this was a mandate in the NOFO. And to meet the family's needs and expand employment opportunity, childcare should be accessible, affordable, high quality, and reliable. So when applicants are putting together plans, it's not enough just to say, here's our plan. We have to make sure that it's an affordable plan, but it's also high quality and reliable. So you're not just providing childcare, you're actually providing high quality childcare. Next slide. Our 4 core childcare principles. Number 1, as I said, affordability. Accessibility is number 2, reliability is number 3, high quality is number 4. When it comes to affordability, the department is not requiring or expecting applicants to provide free care, but to successfully attract and retain workers, applicants should strongly consider defraying the price of care such that it is within reach for low and medium income households. On accessibility, we are strongly suggesting that this be at a convenient location, i.e. it doesn't really make any sense to have a childcare facility that is 25 miles away. So that would probably be a no-go for us. A convenient location can also include a nearby home or something near your work with hours that meet the workers' needs. I mean, I don't have to tell all of you this, but a lot of the jobs right now in manufacturing are that require odd hours. So we want applicants to really think about how can we make sure that people that are working the night shift, people that are working, have to be at work at 4 a.m. can actually have a place to take their kids that is safe and reliable. Again, on reliability, things like backup care, unpredictable schedules, alternative arrangements can all help ensure that workers can do their jobs without worrying about their child's needs. And on quality, the guide provides a workforce guide that we issued shortly after the first NOFO, provides a number of metrics and systems that might be useful. High quality childcare providers will employ staff who are well compensated. We know high quality childcare can be found in a variety of settings, including childcare centers as well as family childcare homes. Next slide. So childcare, models of care. You are already experts in many of the models of care that exist. That is why we're so happy to be talking to all of you today, because you are experts in this space. But I do want to emphasize that the department recognizes that childcare needs will vary across regions and employers, and is not looking for a one-size-fits-all approach. Every community, every region has different needs. And so we really are encouraging applicants to work with their communities to determine what the needs are and how to sort of work around the current construct of what's in place in some of these communities to develop the best plans that meet the needs of their workers. To best understand these diverse needs, in our workforce development guide, the CHIPS program office encourages employers to partner with childcare organizations, providers, and families to assess current childcare capacity and gaps in their community. So again, this is just making sure that people are not just putting together a hypothetical plan, they're actually putting together something that truly reflects the current construct in that community and the current needs in that community. And this engagement will be critical to success. Next steps, final slide. If you have any additional questions, we have a very, very robust website, chips.gov. Everything that we publicly released is on that site. You can also read the Secretary's vision paper, which really lays out the purpose of the NOFO, the purpose of this program, how we, the milestones that we're laying out, how we see the CHIPS and Science Act really changing the way that the semiconductor industry works here in the United States. We also have FAQs and fact sheets. We have our webinar schedule. You can join our mailing list. All the news that we break from the CHIPS team comes out in our newsletter. And I just finally want to emphasize, this is just a start of a long-term transformational program. We've only scratched the surface today, but we do hope that this presentation has helped you understand how you might engage with the childcare provisions in the CHIPS program. And finally, as a next step, we encourage you to look at our website, visit our resources, read the workforce guide, and we do look forward to partnering with all of you to make sure that we can build the most robust childcare programs here at the CHIPS program office. So I will turn the call back over to Laura. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. I mean, I don't think I have seen a PowerPoint presentation get so many emojis in my whole life. So people are really, really excited about this and really excited about the intentionality of including childcare. So thank you. Thank you, Angela and Kimberly and Debbie as well for sharing all those great updates for all of us. It is now my pleasure to introduce our facilitated panel. We're really excited to bring together Wisconsin's Partner Up program, Milwaukee's Next Door program, Catherine McCauley Center for Refugee Childcare, and White Earth Nation's apprenticeship program, representatives from each of these organizations to help us learn about what they're doing to impact and support our workforce. So I just want to remind everyone to please use that question and answer icon at the bottom of your screen to ask questions of our panelists. We hope to have time to get to those questions. But I do not want to wait one more minute before passing it over to the Wisconsin Partner Up program. So the next slide, and you could just whiz through that next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Priya Bhatia, who is the administrator of the Division of Early Care and Education in Wisconsin, to talk about Partner Up.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you all for joining us today. I am here to talk about one of the pilot programs that we recently spun up using a braided funding model, and that program is called Partner Up. In childcare, we often talk about a three-legged stool, that childcare is sort of the top of the stool, and the childcare sector really needs to be supported, not just through parent tuition, because that is typically not fully affordable for parents, particularly when you're thinking about the true cost of childcare. But parent tuition being one of the legs of the stool, in addition to government investment and business. And as was discussed earlier in the presentation, the pandemic really spotlighted the importance of childcare as a broader workforce and economic development issue. And so in Wisconsin, we were hearing the same thing throughout the pandemic, really having the business community, acknowledge and understand how critical childcare was for folks going to work every day. And we wanted to leverage that interest from the business community and create an opportunity for businesses to be part of the solution on childcare. So on the next slide, I have some information about how the basics of the Partner Up program work. The program is designed for businesses to partner with local regulated childcare programs in their communities to secure slots for their employees. And so in this model, businesses contribute a portion of the true cost of care, and the Partner Up program contributes the remainder of the true cost of care. The program was really designed to be a win-win-win. We really wanted businesses to see some benefit, particularly in the recruitment and retaining of employees, as well as helping employees afford childcare, and then providing a steady source of revenue to quality regulated childcare programs that already exist in communities. And key to that is the fact that these slots were priced at something closer to the true cost of care rather than the sticker price. That true cost of care allowing childcare providers to hopefully increase compensation for their own workforce, perhaps provide some additional benefits and invest in quality. So that is the structure of the program. Businesses had options for how long to enroll. It could be up to 12 months, and secured a certain number of slots for their employees. Next slide, please. Thank you. On this slide, I just wanted to highlight that we have a lot more information on our website about the 2 cohorts of this program that we have already run in 2022. We used braided funding to run this program. We used funds from the Preschool Development Grant, as well as some of our COVID relief dollars, both the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act and the American Rescue Plan Act. Through cohorts 1 and 2, we were able to fund 220 businesses that secured slots for their employees. We saw businesses from all sorts of sectors across the state that use this program. Everything from hospitality to healthcare to actually childcare itself. So we have a number of childcare providers as small businesses who offered these slots to their own employees because we know that childcare is really struggling to retain their own workforce. So on our website, you can see more information about who has received the award so far and what criteria we use to select businesses. Because we did have more demand than we had supply for slots. So we did have a wait list of a couple hundred businesses for this program. So we had to use some criteria to select which businesses could participate. More on that on our website. Next slide, please. In terms of impact, here are some quick statistics on the impact of our program. We did conduct an evaluation. We set aside some funding for an evaluation of this pilot program. We found that 82% of participating providers that were surveyed agreed that Partner Up has directly impacted the success of their organization. We also found that 70% of participating businesses agreed that Partner Up has helped their organization avoid labor shortages and attract and retain quality employees. So we're seeing businesses, after having participated in the program, really feel an impact in terms of their ability to retain and attract employees. Some other statistics here, as I mentioned before, 220 businesses have applied and participated so far, with over 1,200 slots across the state. A couple interesting things to note: most families continued with their current childcare provider. And I think that's really important because we know that continuity of care for young children is critical. And then 40% of participants have a household income of below $50,000. We did not put an income cap on this, although there is preference given to businesses that are supporting low to middle income workers. What we see is a lot of workforce here participating, employees participating that maybe are not eligible for our CCDF funded childcare subsidy program, maybe don't quite meet that income threshold or above that, but are still struggling to pay for childcare. So this program, one of its aims is really to hit that population of working families that may not be eligible for federally funded subsidy, but still struggle to meet their childcare needs. Next slide, please. Here, this is the final slide that I have today to just talk about the future of this program. So we did launch a third cohort application that recently closed, and the contracts for the third cohort of businesses will begin later this summer. We are also offering a renewal opportunity for cohorts 1 and 2. With the renewal opportunity, businesses that participated in cohorts 1 and 2 must increase their contribution. So it's a way to step up business involvement and step down the state funding for this program. Now, this is a pilot program, and we are learning as we go and making adjustments accordingly. So there is one significant change that we've learned from some feedback that we've received, which is really wanting to see a parent share. So for cohort 3, parents must contribute 10% of the true cost of care. We are proud that, in our evaluation, 93% of employers surveyed would participate in the program again, but it is a pilot, and we did receive suggestions for process improvements, which we are implementing now. As the federal funds wind down, the COVID relief funds, the governor has put a budget recommendation of $22 million in state funding towards this program. And we will see in the coming months whether that program is funded through our biennial budget in Wisconsin. And with that, I will turn it back over to Laura.
Thanks so much, Priya. It was exciting to hear about your program. I'm excited now to pass it off to Milwaukee's Next Door Pathways program. Excited to have Susan Murray, who's the director of the Workforce Development Program. She's also joined by Miranda Siranen to talk about this exciting program. Take it away, guys.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. If you can move to the next slide, that would be great. And the next one. So at Nextdoor, we developed a Pathways program in an effort to counter the teacher shortage. Our intention is to recruit new teachers, increase staff retention, and to fill vacant positions, resulting in the ability to open more classrooms and ultimately serve more children and families. On the next slide, we'll look at some of the facts and figures. Next one. Yeah, we currently offer 6 paths to earn early childhood credentials and degrees. You could just click through. We have 31 paths that were completed as of December 2022, and we gained 14 new teaching staff in 2022, and we are continuing to grow. The next slide.
All right, so hi everyone, I'm Miranda Siranen. I'm the Vice President of Programs at Nextdoor, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of the pathways that we offer that Susie just referenced, particularly our pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship programs. Now, first with our pre-apprenticeship, the goal of this program is really to gauge interest in the field of early childhood education. Nextdoor works with community partners to recruit individuals that are brand new to the field of early childhood education. This allows us to really build up the ECE workforce and build a pipeline of staff to develop their career in ECE at Nextdoor and beyond. So our pre-apprentices are hired to work with us at Nextdoor, and they are aspiring assistant teachers. So when they join us, they start with an 8-week training program. It is a paid training program. They go through a series of classes that help them to earn the credentials they need per the state of Wisconsin childcare licensing requirements to be a childcare teacher. Once they complete that training program, they become assistant teachers in our classrooms. Throughout the entire duration of the training program, they receive on-the-job coaching and mentoring support. And that is, as I mentioned, a paid training opportunity. Next slide, I'm going to talk about our registered apprenticeship program. This is really the original Pathways Education Training Program that really launched the programs that Susie has referenced. So 4 years ago at Nextdoor, we partnered with other early childhood educational organizations in the city of Milwaukee, our state local workforce development board in Milwaukee, as well as the state technical college system. And the goal was to develop a registered early childhood education apprenticeship. So we partnered together, and that is a recognized registered apprenticeship here in the state of Wisconsin. And Nextdoor is now a sponsor organization to support apprentices going through the program. Our goal internally is to really use this program to support our assistant teachers, current assistant teachers that have a goal of developing their career in early childhood education. They join the apprenticeship program and go through the courses and have a goal of becoming a lead teacher in our early Head Start classrooms at the end of the program. This apprenticeship allows our teachers to earn 24 credits in early childhood education at our local technical college. So they attend Milwaukee Area Technical College for their classes. The tuition is fully covered by various funding sources that we have to support our employees that are attending the program. In addition, they receive paid release time to attend class. They receive on-the-job coaching and support throughout the process, as well as other resources that they may need. So at the end of the program, they would become a lead teacher in our early Head Start program. And as I mentioned, it's at no cost to our employees. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how we leverage different sources of funding to support these different pathways. Now I'm going to hand it back over to Susie, and she's going to talk about some of the other pathways education opportunities that are part of our program.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So in addition to our apprenticeship and certified pre-apprenticeship, we offer additional paths to growing our staff and their professional development. As previously mentioned, we partner with local colleges to offer college-level courses and degree programs. So staff work with our Pathways coordinator to determine which path fits their needs and abilities. And then our paths are offered remote or in-person classes, as well as some are offered on site at Nextdoor. Each path can be built on to ultimately achieve a bachelor's degree, again, with all costs incurred by Nextdoor. And on the next slide, we'll talk about some of those supports. So we've built in varying supports for our staff so that they can be successful in this program. And one of them is our success coaches that support our staff in overcoming housing issues, transportation, financial literacy, all those pieces. We also offer free training, tuition, and all fees, books, stipends for each participant. We have academic support via our Pathways trainer and coach, ongoing communities of practice, office hours, and they're given release time. They're also provided technology, laptops, and other technologies that they need to use at school and work. We have wellness support via wellness specialist that has mindfulness and yoga sessions, financial literacy, and they're employed full-time on site as our employees. So let's talk about why we're successful on the next slide. So as Miranda talked a little bit about, we partner with our local workforce development board, local technical college and universities, and organizations that share our vision. We layer funding via scholarships and a mix of private and public grants. And our success coaches, instructional coaches, wellness specialists, supervisors and managers, and robust professional development are part of our interdisciplinary approach to supporting our programming throughout the organization. Miranda, do you have anything you want to add?
I do not, Susie. Thanks for the summary.
Yes. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan and Miranda. I'm now excited to turn it over to Renee Poplar. She's the Careers and Employment Program Manager at the Catherine McAuley Center for Refugee Childcare. Thanks, Renee.
Hi everyone. I'm really excited to be here. If you can switch to the next slide and tell you guys a little bit about the Catherine McAuley Center. So we are in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and the Catherine McAuley Center is the only refugee resettlement agency in the eastern part of the state. The center actually started in '89, providing education, HiSET, well then GED, now HiSET, right, to individuals. And we're part of the Sisters of Mercy, and one of the after a couple of years noticed that our women's services team really needed to get started. And so what they started is women's transitional housing. So we have women that live on site and in houses across the street who work on various like mental health and employment issues, substance abuse. While they're here, they can live here up to 2 years. And over time, we've grown, and we were reached out to by the USCRI to become a refugee and immigrant services resettlement site. So we started those services in late 2017. And in 2019, we were awarded an award for the refugee childcare program that we currently run. Our mission and values are there. I'm going to have you skip to the next slide because it's really, there we go. So the Refugee Childcare Micro Enterprise Development Program is a mouthful. So we've shortened it. We call it the RCP program, Refugee Childcare Program. It is a 3-year government grant that is directly with the Office of Refugee Resettlement. We have partner agencies that we work with, the local child care resource and referral in Lynn, Johnson, and Black Hawk counties. We work with our local HACAP offices as well as HHS. The classes, what it does is it offers refugees and their family members who've lived in the United States 5 years or less the opportunity to work with 2 of our case managers to open their own in-home childcare businesses. It's attributed to about 30% increase in household income for those families. And it has really allowed these, and I say women only because it's open to men or women. We've only had women enroll here locally. But it has really allowed them to do what they did in their country for free for friends and family to get paid for, right? So we access CCA funds, the child care assistance funds here in the state. And we provide all of this training in their native languages, which is pretty amazing. So it is a combination of classroom and individual meetings that we use to support the women who are looking to become licensed HHS registered in-home childcare providers. And again, we've offered all of the training in Swahili, French, Pashto, and Dari. We have had some Kinyarwanda speakers as well, but most of them are in Swahili, French, Pashto, and Dari. It has improved the number of quality and culturally linguistic appropriate childcare spots. However, our current providers, it's been pretty amazing to watch how they've expanded their businesses and enrolling families outside of their communities to aid in the overall childcare crisis that we have going on here in Iowa. It is open to the refugees and their family members, but it's also open to asylees, Cuban and Haitian entrants, and then the Ameri-Asians, Iraqis, and Afghan special immigrants, or what we call SIV holders, and their immediate family members. In 2023, because of the success that we've had with the ORR programming, we have been able to secure additional funding through the Iowa Women's Foundation, which has allowed us to enroll refugees and immigrants who have been here longer than 5 years into the program. And we just had 7 women just complete that program who are all French speakers. So if you want to switch to the next slide. So since 2029 to current, just to give you a quick overview, we've had 43 participants. That's not including the 7 who are currently enrolled, and the 6 that we have starting the first part of June. So we've had 43 participants who have completed all of the trainings. 30 of those are currently licensed homes. And we'll talk about the challenges here in a minute, but we've had 30 licensed homes. 21 of them are currently active and have open enrollments, and that has created 120 daycare slots in Cedar Rapids alone. We've expanded to Blackhawk, which is essentially Waterloo and Cedar Falls, and Johnson counties, which is the Iowa City area. We have a group that will be starting in Waterloo, hopefully by October. ChildNet is a, well, and you guys are all childcare providers, right? So ChildNet, we were able to provide the first complete training in Swahili for the first time in the state of Iowa this past fall, which was pretty amazing. I think it's pretty amazing how we've been able to provide first aid and CPR, ChildNet classes, all of the essentials trainings in Swahili, French, Pashto, and Dari. It's all been translated. We do the same thing with mandatory reporting. So it's pretty cool. ChildNet, I'm seeing here that it's specific to Iowa, but what it is, it's an additional 24 hours of training ongoing every year that's allowed and not allowed, it's encouraged for families who are needing to get their continuing education credits to remain open. Going to our challenges, the biggest challenge we have is landlord approval. We have 31 families that are currently interested in joining our program. However, we don't have their landlords allowing businesses to be on their properties, or if they live in apartment buildings, it's really not been something that we've been able to kind of work through and crack that code to get the landlords on board. However, we have found lots of individual landlords who own multiple houses who are open to that. We work with our resettlement team. When we have a family that comes through that the mom indicates that she doesn't want to work outside of the home, that she wants to be a caregiver, we work with our resettlement case managers to try and put those particular families into homes where the landlords are willing to work with us, so that we can set those women up from the moment they get here to sort of start their own businesses and become their own bosses, right? It's been pretty amazing. But that landlord approval has been our biggest hurdle. Staff turnover is also something that we've had problems with at our partner agencies. The biggest issue we've had, and why that is because our participants obviously have language, sometimes big language barriers. A lot of our individuals come with little to no literacy skills in their own language. So learning how to support them learning English on the backside to be able to get through a lot of the paperwork that's through HHS, which still is in English, has been a turnover when we start working with particular case managers and they kind of get to know our routine. So just getting to know some of the newer ones sometimes takes a little bit longer. It slows down our process just slightly. What I will say is our partner agencies have been amazing at reaching out to us if they have questions. We provide all of the home visits. We do in-home visits with each of the families, which when we talk about another challenge is the length of time it takes to get from referral to the HHS licensing approval. What normally takes mandatory reporting on English speaker about 2 hours to complete, it takes our participants about 8 by the time we do all of the translation and all of the testing with the translation. It just takes longer. So the usual time, it takes between 4 to 6 months from the start to finish, which is why the sooner we can get folks referred and enrolled in the program, the quicker they are to be able to make money and to be able to help increase their family income. I went through that very quickly and spoke very fast. So anything else, please put the questions in the chat. I'm happy to elaborate on that. But what I will say is that this has been a really empowering thing for the women that we work with. Over time, by the end of this year, we should have slightly over 200 additional childcare slots just in Lynn County alone, which is where we're located, with getting up to about 55 participants overall. What's nice is that our providers do provide that second shift and overnight care and on weekends, which is really nice. A lot of our refugee community works those second and third shift jobs. And what's nice is that these providers really do a good job of accommodating that. We've had so much success where we've been being reached out by HHS and having some of them become licensed foster care homes to provide assistance for children who speak their languages. So it's been pretty an amazing program to be a part of.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And it's so nice to hear you talk about like a challenge of time, but such a worthwhile commitment to make sure that young children are exposed to women of different cultures and backgrounds. So we're really excited.
Yeah.
Just a
I
Go
should say
ahead,
it's been really fun to see that the families who have opened it up to non-community staff or kids that have been coming. It's really immersing them in French and Swahili, which is a large part of our community here. About 40% of our population are immigrants and refugees in our county. And so it's been really amazing to see how they've been embraced and how they're providing and providing this opportunity for our community. It's been really, really amazing to be a part of.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Before I go to our next panelist, I just want to address one of the notes in the chat. Some people would really like to reach out to some of our panelists. So if the panelists are comfortable in the chat providing email addresses so that people want to, touch base and get a little bit more deeper dive, a little peer-to-peer support, we would love for you to add that if you're comfortable in the chat. So now, without further ado, I'm excited to, if you want to move to the next slide, to pass it over to Chris Woodring. Chris is a TA specialist with the Tribal Child Care Capacity Building Center, which is a service of the Office of Child Care. And Chris is going to introduce us to an apprenticeship project that is going on with White Earth Nation. So I'll turn it over to you, Chris.
Miigwech, Laura. Thank you. Next slide, please. Bonjour, Chris Woodring, Nishtakaz, Nadawasapayik, Ndebnagwest, Bodawatami and Dow, Muskegon, Michigan, and Dochpia. So hi, everybody. My name is Chris Woodring. I'm a technical assistant specialist with the Tribal Child Care Capacity Building Center, and I support the White Earth Nation's Child Care Development Block Grant Program. So I'm happy to be here today, everyone. Next slide, please. So the White Earth Child Care Program is currently housed in its education department. Oh, next slide. I'm sorry, we're here. So it's currently housed in its child care or its an education department. So they have a tribally operated center and relative care providers. It's their mission to provide high quality, cultural-based child care development support, services, outreach, and advocacy for families, providers on or near the White Earth Reservation to help their children succeed through visions of supporting the community needs and goals of having interested parties that are prepared and desire to be in the field of early childhood development. The beneficiaries of these ideas are the community of the Great White Earth Nation. One of the successes they are now seeing are prior students that were in their program are working as child care providers in their community. Next slide, please. So a few years back, there was a struggle to get staff, and the question was asked on how can they get people interested in the field of child care. It was mentioned that apprenticeships can help earn while they learn. And it would be a great opportunity as a learn to work program for the youth. The idea is that the program would offer essential health and safety training, such as sudden infant death syndrome, abusive head trauma, CPR, and first aid. The apprentices are not left alone with the children, but they are assistants for the providers and participate with activities supporting those child care providers. The child care providers have reported that they are very happy to have the additional help with their programs. So CCDF program pays the minimum wage to those providers for the additional staff. It's also been discussed that those the child care providers could not afford to pay those wages at minimum due to not having the funding because they don't often have the fees large enough to pay. So the CCDF program acts as a supplement. So one of the positive actions that have occurred was families requesting their children aged 12 to 15 included in those training opportunities, which ultimately has led to more interest in the apprenticeship program. Next slide, please. Some of the challenges that were faced is confidentiality, cell phone use, and following expectations of the program. Setting expectations with clear guidelines leads the participants toward success. Providing necessary program information during those training opportunities is very important for a successful outcome. Another lesson learned is to be sure that the apprentices are included in those fun activities. After all, most have been in school the entire year, so allowing them to be creative with their activities helps keep them interested and allows them to understand that their contributions are very meaningful. Next slide, please. So these partnerships within the community have produced 10 youth who are trained and active in the child care field. There are 5 that serve their relative care providers and 5 that work in their tribally operated center. Another huge benefit is the intergenerational learning that is occurring for the young ones. The apprentices are learning from the older generations and also serving as teachers to the young ones. Intergenerational learning is a form of indigenous knowledge sharing. There are several participants who are returning for seasonal opportunities. It's a great feeling to see growth from the seed. The watering of the plant brings so many benefits to the community. Once again, I am excited to share this information on behalf of the White Earth Tribal Nation Child Care Development Block Grant Program. They do an awesome job. This is a very innovative practice that we are sharing with other tribal nations across the regions I support. So I can say Chi-miigwech for allowing me the opportunity to share this information. Aha.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I just love the fact that amongst our panels, we've had different kinds of examples that can be moved to scale. They can be brought down. Like this is a wonderful example of something that really could be replicated in many other settings. And so thank you for sharing it with us. I don't know if you know the answer to this question, Chris, but there was a question in the chat box about whether or not this program is a registered apprenticeship program.
I do not know if they actually have it registered. What I do know is this has been alive and well in their community for a couple of years, and it's been very engaging. I can do some checking and get back with you, Laura, with that information.
Great, great. So I do believe we have the person's information in the chat, so we can get back to you. So next slide. We're going to take a couple of minutes for questions for our panelists. And so I'm wondering if either, if anyone has some questions they want to share, you can absolutely put them in the Q&A. You could also put them in the chat. We have people who are looking at both places for questions. So we have a question about accessing the recording. So you will get an email that gives you a link to our recording once it's posted. Please remember that the slide deck will go through some compliance and then be posted. So it's not an immediate thing. Give it a week or so, and then we will have that available for you. Lacey, I see you popped on, so you might have some other questions that came up.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat box a while ago while Priya was presenting from Wisconsin. Just asking if Wisconsin was already connected to the Best Place for Working Parents network, as that seems like it would be a really strong alliance.
We are not currently connected with that organization, but I certainly noted it for myself to do some additional research there. So thanks for the suggestion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's really another awesome thing about having these webinars is the connections that people can make to help even our panelists broaden their scope of influence. So other questions that came up, Lacey?
Yeah, so there was a comment in the Q&A box asking, as a woman has times and struggled with finding childcare center open before 6 a.m., has there been anything to address this issue for the retention of women in construction trades that are often single parents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, an interesting question. I don't know if any of our panelists want to address whether or not you've had similar issues with women who really need that real early care or extra late care, and how you've addressed that.
I'll just mention that I talked a little bit about prioritization of applications for Partner Up and businesses that were helping to secure slots for non-standard hours. That was a specific area that has been a focus for us. We know that that's a real need.
Yeah, thank you. So as people are thinking about how to put criteria in as you're providing resources for programs, that's a really great criteria, is to make sure that people are thinking about non-traditional work hours. So thank you, Grace, for highlighting that there's a need for non-traditional hours for women.
Laura, I just also wanted to mention, I know, I'm not sure if our colleague from the Department of Commerce is still on, but the CHIPS Workforce Planning Guide does have some special considerations for construction workers, including non-traditional hour care highlighted, so that I can't remember if we linked to that resource in the chat, but that there is some language and examples that are in that planning guide.
Oh, thank you. And also thank you, Kim, for putting so many resources in the chat box. I hope that everyone is looking out for these resources. They're really superb. Go ahead, Chris.
So there are some tribes that provide tiered rates for non-traditional hours of care. I know that doesn't directly answer, if it's a prioritization for a specific trade or not, but using the tiered rate system has been beneficial for like getting those slots. So I just thought I would add that.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Renee. I will also state that our providers do also get those tiered rates from the HHS for the child care programs here. And when we're recruiting for program participants, that is one of the things we talk about, is the availability of the community, the availability of their clients that they're going to be serving. And I neglected to mention in all of that, each participant, so not only do we provide classes and workshops, we also connect them to, we have a $1,200 stipend that we use to purchase all of the safety equipment that they need. We help them set up all of their homes. And when we're in the homes, we talk about what that looks like. Well, I see a question and I'm just going to address it because I have the chat open, but it asked, how can real estate investors help with increasing family childcare homes availability? I would really say opening up to allowing childcare businesses in your homes. We provide the first year of liability insurance. So for having the childcare centers in your home, there are programs out there that can help support that funding and requiring that licensure. The other thing about the landlords and real estate owners is that they actually have a say in the number of slots each home can provide. So if you have a provider that has 6 of their own children and 5 of them are under school age, and the limit for providers is 6, you can indicate that you only allow 1 child in the home while they have 5 of their own. You have a say in that as a landlord, the number of slots. It isn't just a random number. It is actually something that you can help control. So communicating that with your tenant, if they're open to allowing providers, is huge. And then just making sure that they do offer that liability insurance will take a lot of the risk off of the landlord for having those businesses in the home.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Renee. And thanks for that question. That is just another partner that sometimes we forget to reach out to, is our real estate developers, who actually could support by building properties that also meet interior licensing requirements. So that is, they're thinking about, hey, I'm going to invest in this neighborhood, but I'm going to keep one of the houses in the neighborhood as a house that's going to be for family childcare. And I'm going to make sure that I put small toilets in that house. I'm going to really give back to the community that I'm investing in. I love that. And so hopefully people will partner up with their real estate investors. Alyssa, I was just going to address Alyssa's question in the chat around agencies that support funding for doctoral degrees. So there are some teach states who provide tuition support for up to a doctoral degree. So your first place to maybe look is to see if the state where you're living offers teach scholarships, but also just contacting your professional development system in your state or territory to see if they can provide you with resources around that. Go ahead, Lacey.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Laura. I was just going to mention another question in the Q&A box was around, I think it was addressed towards the Milwaukee apprenticeship program. It was a clarifying question asking, would this include college programs that provide care for students who are parents and that are training to go into these jobs? So is there childcare available for that population of people?
So all of our pathways are open to our employees. And so we are a childcare facility, so they can enroll their children here or at one of our partnership sites. And so as Miranda mentioned, there's also release time in several of our paths built in. And so oftentimes they're going to class during. They're also given stipends that they can use for additional childcare if they're not going within the traditional work hours. So there's different programming options that they can use depending on what meets their need. And they work with our Pathways program coordinator to really determine what the best fit is for them. So there's a variety of options available to them.
Thank you. And I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions before I pass it back to Angela for our closing. Any other questions? Again, you can use the chat or the Q&A feature.
There's one more in the Q&A. Are there any pathways for multi-employer contractors or grants that were available? Because representing workers, we would have to work with multi-employers to ask for grants under Taft-Hartley. We are losing sisters at a terrible rate because of childcare. And I'm assuming this is I believe the sisters of a trade that they're talking about.
So any of our panelists want to respond to that question?
I guess I need a little more clarification in order to answer that. Is there more information you could provide?
Yeah, Nick, if you can just give us a little bit more information about your question, maybe we can try to help out with that. So we'll wait to see if Nick has a chance to do that. I don't see. Desiree in the chat was just kind of offering up support. So she's a Department of Labor intermediary working under an industry intermediary contract in the care economy. And if people are interested in more information about how to develop apprenticeships in the EC industry, she would love for you guys to reach out. So thank you. And if you want to have some good basic information about apprenticeships, if you're thinking about getting into that game, Kim put in the chat box a link to a previous Workforce Wednesday webinar that really kind of got to the nuts and bolts of what is a registered apprenticeship, how do you go about that. So it's a good primer for people who are thinking about exploring apprenticeships. So I think given the time, I would love to pass it back to Angela for some closing remarks.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura. And what an excellent discussion. And, as we conclude this really insightful Midwest Regional webinar, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to each of you for taking the time to participate in this crucial discussion and also your engagement, thoughtful questions and your shared wisdom. I know that has undoubtedly contributed to a richer understanding of the challenges and opportunities we face in early care and education sector. I also want to thank all of our speakers and presenters as well for their information, and I trust that today's discussion and insights and shared best practices hopefully have stimulated fresh ideas and a renewed sense of commitment to our shared cause. You know, as we part ways today, I do encourage you to take a moment and to reflect upon the insights you gained today. And if you don't mind, I know typically we're on this video conference and no one has a pen or paper. You may have your notes pulled up, but if you don't mind, just getting a pen and this piece of paper. And I would like for you to take a moment just to write down one idea or practice that you heard during this session today that really resonated with you and that you can borrow and apply into your work. So I just want to take a moment to allow you to do that, to really think about what did you pick up today that you want to follow up on, that you might want to integrate into your own work. Now, in the coming weeks, all registered attendees will receive a follow-up email that will include a link to the website where you will find a recording of today's session. You'll find the PowerPoint presentation and some other resource documents, and Laura kind of mentioned that earlier. Now, do understand the materials that we're going to provide to you are really designed to support your continued work in this area, and I hope you'll find them to be valuable. Now, this is not the end of our conversation, but rather just a stepping stone towards greater collaboration and innovation and progress in the early care and education sector. So let us carry forward the momentum from today's discussion and continue to strive towards our shared goal of a robust, accessible, and high quality early care and education system for all. And finally, I do want to thank you for your participation again today and for your dedication to this crucial work. I look forward to our continued collaboration and to seeing the positive impacts of the ideas and initiatives that you've explored today. And remember, every step that we take brings us closer to our shared vision. Thank you so much.